It looks like we are starting off on Eclipse. And I gotta say, yeah, Herbmon is very, very strong versus Protoss. He's got very, very strong versus Zerg. This is his weakest matchup, and I think this is going to be maybe his biggest test, because I think Artosis has the strongest TVZ here.
Do you think that Artosis has a bit of an advantage because he just got to watch that series between Herbmon and Nesh? That was a wild series.
Yeah, he actually was saying, like, if he wasn't in here, like,
oh, they can't see. You got to change the scene.
Oh, damn it. Sorry, everybody.
That's okay. They're just looking at us, and we're beautiful people, so.
There we go. Come on. Let me switch.
Interesting. Artosis has gone with the hot pink color choice, the terror choice, as I like to call it.
Terror choices.
Let's see what we got.
We'll get better at this as the day progresses. Oh, we got Herbmon already.
Yeah, you can leave that in there and just change it to 0. There you go.
I set up a fancier one, but we're not going to break all that often, and I was anticipating being able to, like, know who we were going up, like who was going to be coming.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult, you know, because the players just want to play, right? So it's hard to get in there and make sure they're getting the game's casted. I mean, half the bracket's already done on one side, basically. So
I'm kind of glad, though, because I've definitely been at other tournaments where people are waiting for, like, the next stages to go along, and we end up going to, like, 2, 3 a.m.
Yeah, I don't think this one will end up going that long, but we'll see. You know, if we end up with Nyoken versus Artosis, that's going to be
that could be a
very long series. So, interesting
TVT.
Opening here. So we have Herbmon's going. Was that pool first? He looks like he's going. It's interesting.
Pool first, very early gas.
What are we thinking here? Maybe he's going to end up doing a speedling all-in of some kind.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is going to be is he going to do the Zergy things? Go for a speedling all in, or is he going to go for some later tech, maybe early lurker? Artosis moving that SCV out, and
interesting to do this on a 2-player map when it's going to get scouted so fast as well.
Definitely not the map I would have chosen to go from this, but Artosis is definitely going to have alarm bells going off, seeing that gas up so rapidly.
And now Artosis is getting inside and being able to scout everything, which is great. You know, he's probably saw the Zerglings, how many Zerglings there just hatched. It looks like it's going to be full Zerglings.
Meantime, we've got the first Marine. I don't think Artosis, I mean, here's the thing. Artosis has seen it all. And this is one of the reasons, oh man,
it's a quick, fast layer.
Very fast layer. We got a layer at 2 minutes, 40 seconds, which means Herbmon's going to try to play, well, I assume this is going to be a lurker bust attempt. But we'll see. Zergling's going all the way around. They want to try to take out this SCV. It's critical that he gets this SCV out of the base so he can deny the information. But Artosis is doing a pretty good job of keeping it alive, at least thus far, against this many. But Herbmon now sealed as a trap, able to at least push that SCV out. But at the very least, Artosis has to know that he's up against some form of early game pressure.
Absolutely. And I mean, pushing that SCV out is such a huge confidence boost for Herbmon, so he's got to be feeling good. He got the build he wanted to do. He's got the scouting out of his base, and really it's up to him to scout now and see what Artosis is doing and see if he can punish this. It's an interesting expansion to do versus a 9-pool build.
Interesting enough, so sealing up the front with a supply depot, and Artosis immediately dropping a gas himself and pausing barracks production briefly. So I'm curious if he wants to get a faster some faster mech out or something along those lines. It looks like it is going to be rapid 2-hatch Mutalisk here.
Yeah, very quick 2-hatch Muta, so it's going to be really, really tight to get that eBay down and get any turrets up while also having a confident Marine force to back up those turrets. Denying the scouting is huge here. I mean, that is a lot of lings, though, I got to say it. To me, I would be screaming in my head, Zergling all in.
Yeah, so now the problem for Artosis is it Zergling all in, or is it going to, and he saw that early gas, so he's got to expect some sort of tech follow-up, but is it early Zergling, or are we seeing, in his mind, Mutalisks or Lurkers, and it looks like Herbmon to go for the Mutalisk option. I think he wanted to get that gas down, get that Academy all the more rapid so we get a comp set. The Zerglings shooting into the natural expansion. It looks like they are able to get here and get some disruption. That's forcing a liftoff. Few of them getting wiped out, and that was a good 6 Zerglings down, but this is also denying additional mining. Artosis holding up on the ramp, and Herbmon playing the Zergiest of Zergs right here. No comsat being dropped, and it looks like a barracks up, and that Spire not that far from finishing.
And I mean, Artosis is going to be in a really tight spot here. He's going to have Mutas on his way. He's not going to be able to start turrets anytime soon. And, you know, he can't even really contain or control his natural expansion. This is going to be a really tight spot for Artosis. great decision making for Herbmon to do a build like this.
Yeah, I think it's kind of clever. The Mutalisk count is going to be a little bit lower because he's going to have fewer larvae to work with, but if he can get them out in sufficient numbers and move up before the turrets are in place to the natural, he'll be in a pretty good position. It looks like Artosis moving with the medic down, able to clear out the rest of the Zerglings, getting the Comsat station, some additional Zerglings moving there. Oh, and I'm wondering if he missed a cycle here for those Mules because he had the Spire up. Now Comsat had seized the Spire, but he doesn't have an engineering bay up. But at the same time, Herbmon doesn't have a lot of Mutalisks out in the air, and Artosis now moving out with the Medic Marines, engaging and pushing those Zerglings back. So Herbmon, if he had a build in mind, I think he ended up missing a cycle right there because the Mutalisks coming out earlier than you would see with the standard 2-hatch Mutalisk, but later than he probably wanted.
Yeah, and I mean, you're totally right. It looked like his larva management there was slipped for a minute because he ended up making additional lings right as the Spire had finished. So I don't know if he missed a cycle on his Overlords or if he just got a little overexcited by having control of that natural expansion for a little while.
Looks like he was able to slip in some Zerglings and get some additional harassment, halting that turret construction at the main, but in the meantime, with that delay, Artosis should have sufficient defenses as those Mutalisks are moving out. We already have 3 turrets and a 4th on the way at the natural expansion.
And that's great turret placement. I mean, he's got them right there in a line, and that's very difficult to deal with at times for Zerg. Now, there's slim turrets in the main base, and Herbmon is going directly to the main base, so this is a great decision for him. Let's see if he can at least pick off some Marines.
Able to get at least 1 Marine right there. This, and we'll see if Herbmon, keep in mind, doing all this has probably kept him at a much lower drone count than usual. It looks like he's only got 6 drones currently at the natural expansion. He is still mining off that gas, but at this stage, I'm curious if he's just going to try to barrel through and go all in Mutalisk.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you know, he's definitely going to be able to pick off some Marines here, and even better if he can pick off a medic or 2. That can really throw Terrans off. Oh, yeah, like that. That is painful for Artosis, and he's just going to get smothered if he doesn't pull his units back.
And Herbmon looking really, really sharp with his Mutalisk micro right here. Artosis trying to get additional turret up. It looks like that's not going to happen. He really needs another turret up over this barracks line because as Herbmon is, yeah, it looks like going all in Mutalisk. We got more coming across the map. Shortly, he's going to be overwhelmed, and he needs to keep these barracks up and running. He's just got a measly 5 Marines out. Looks like 2 just additionally joining him, but this is a dangerous Mutalisk count that continues to grow, and Herbmon looks like he does want to win it just off straight 2-hatch Mutalisk, barreling Artosis over.
Yeah, it's a great decision making by Herbmon. You know, he can see that there's only 2 barracks, and he can pick off a certain number of Marines, and then he can just ravage whichever area he wants. There's slim turret defense in the main.
Oh, got the medic right there again.
Stealing the medics is just painful for Artosis. I'm not sure if chat's going to be happy after the end of this game.
I don't know if chat is rooting for or against Artosis, honestly, overall, but we see a slew of additional turrets dropping down to make sure that Herbmon's work is all the more difficult. But right now, yeah, still just the 2 barracks pumping, picking off those medics has been absolutely huge. This medic, the lone medic remaining, is somewhat low on energy, and it looks like out of energy right this second. So these Mutalisks will do pretty well against the Marines, but already making up the difference by just dropping a slew of missile turrets absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's an interesting decision to try to go into factory from here. I wonder if he's going to try to build Valks out of this position. What do you think about that?
I think he's mostly trying to get that factory down so he can get up to science vessels as rapidly as possible. It is possible he'll go to Valkyrie to follow it up. That would be something to buy some defense, but in the meantime, it looks like Herbmon, after doing some of that initial damage, is starting to exit out of it. He's got that 9 o'clock base up and running, now starting to attack this natural expansion. He's got +1 weapons finish, and the Marines making their way down. It looks like some of them getting caught behind that mineral and getting wrecked right there. Artosis actually said in some of the practices that Herbmon did this as well. He's got 4 inactive Mutalisks here to the north. I'm not sure if he just mismicroed them or is just waiting to keep them as part of that control group and trade them out and around. Yeah, it looks like he's going to trade them out around here. But
looks like he's going to cycle them out, which is really, really, really great in order to continue to control and ravage those turret lines.
But in the meantime, we got the science vessel. We'll see if it ends up. I don't see an armory down anywhere, so I do believe it is going to be science vessel ultimately. But Herbmon's done a great job of pinning Artosis in, doing pretty a good amount of damage, and it really slowing down his economy by forcing him to build mass amounts of turrets.
Yeah, that is a lot of turrets, and you know, turrets are just not good by themselves. You really, he is building the armory, so I do think he's going to end up going into Valks here, and that's a good decision. I mean, it's really difficult to get up the amount of starports you need in this situation to really bolster that science vessel count to fight off this many mutas. Valks can be a good counter to this, although I'm not sure. He's already taken a ton of damage. I mean, the supply is not looking good for Artosis.
Supply not looking good. Herbmon continuing to pressure this natural expansion. Another turret down, another turret being taken out as I'm even talking, and it looks like that SCV count not where he wants it to be. We also have Mutalisk just hovering over what would be a nearby third. The third base is up. The gas hasn't yet been grabbed from Herbmon. Thus far, doing a pretty good job of keeping Artosis back, but critically, as he's transitioning out of this, he hasn't gotten this base up and running.
Yeah, I mean, but he's done a tremendous amount of damage, and one of the interesting things that people don't often think about is I saw when you hovered over those medics for a moment, they were out of energy, which is really going to make those Marines even less effective than they've already been. Oh, and they're running off by themselves. No, medics. Artosis medics, no!
It does get picked off, and Herbmon's done a fantastic job this game picking off medic after medic after medic, and he really, so I feel like almost Nesh might have been a warm-up game because he's looking really, really strong in this matchup here, and look how bunkered in Artosis is. This is a slew of turrets.
Yeah, and those turrets are causing problems for him on that first mineral patch, which is always a painful thing for Terran players because, it's really difficult to have the positional awareness at times to kill that turret later game after you kill off the mutas.
And now what might be the killing blow, just kind of walking up into that natural expansion. We've got a bunch of lurkers pressing in. We've got some Mutalisks to provide some support. And again, so we have the science facility, but no science vessel as of yet. And do we have a tech we do have a standby tech. And so now Herbmon, a lot like game 2 versus Nesh, has a soft contain on his opponent.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a strong position. There's no siege, there's no science vessels. You can push out against those lurkers once you've destroyed or killed all the mutas, but until that time, one tank is not going to be able to do much.
And the tank needs to be protected against those Mutalisks diving across that edge, and the lurkers now pushing in all the way. Herbmon thinks he's got enough to make it happen, obliterating that bunker, and the fire bats and medics as well. And now we got 2 siege tanks, a handful of Marines to try to defend against the lurkers that are breaching the natural.
Yeah, getting behind the mineral line is great. I mean, he's able to kill that economy even if he's not able to kill the SCVs. He's got total control of this game. Tremendous from Herbmon.
So finally, it looks like the science vessels and siege tanks going to be able to evict what's left, but a lot of damage has been done. This has really slowed down Artosis quite a bit. Herbmon still has that economic lead. It looks like he's got that third base, that extractor is making his way to Hive, is starting to produce Hydralisks. I'm wondering if he's going to transition actually to Plague, so Hydra Plague Defiler at this stage. Artosis still hasn't managed to muster much of an army. Let's see if he starts pushing out with what he's got.
And I know Artosis has said a little bit during the LAN that he's been struggling with that Hydra Plague Defiler push. And since he's already contained, I mean, it's a really strong position for Herbmon to be in.
So it looks like he's finally able to create a little bit of a breach. Where does he go from here? I think Herbmon still has some plenty of defenses, a little bit of an Overlord wandering about too far. I think Irradiate might have been a bit delayed because we got these siege tanks out. Keep in mind, once you go into these siege tanks, that's going to make that science vessel count a little bit lower. But Artosis now looking for a counter push, and I think this is the one shot he's going for to maybe get a base down or 2 of Herbmon's and try to win the game from there. Wants to try to siege Herbmon into his natural expansion, but he's going to have to go through a lot of lurkers, zerglings, and the Defiler Mound is not that far from completion.
Absolutely, and he needs to get something done with this push, or he's going to be in a lot of trouble. He's likely going to be mined out of his main fairly soon, and this needs to do a lot of damage in order for Artosis to be in a healthy position. But Herbmon looks like he's just going to go all the way around maybe, or counter, or no, he is sandwiching the entire army.
So it looks like he moved to the north initially and is now repositioning and now diving on top of those siege tanks. Some lurkers burrowing to the rear. It looks like at least a lurker able to get on top of that siege tank line. He really needs to take these siege tanks out. All the Mutalisks are gone, so it is up to these 4 remaining, 3 remaining, 2 remaining lurkers. It looks like some Marines still alive. 2 siege tanks are very weak, but they're still operational.
And he only needed 1 additional fire from those lurkers in order to take out those last 2 siege tanks, so that's got to be painful for Herbmon, but his reinforcements going to be able to come in and clean something up. Artosis did a lot of damage for units, but he didn't do any economical damage, so I'm not sure if that was enough.
In the meantime, he's going to redrop some bunkers on his front, so he at least stays in the game. He's got an SCV to the north to go ahead and grab his third base. Herbmon's expanding to the bottom right. That will be 4 gas if he can cap it. But Herbmon, as he's exited out of this, actually is looking pretty healthy with his economy overall. He's got the Defiler Mound and Evolution Chamber dropping. But in previous matches, this is where we've seen him stall out a little bit, is this mid-game macro position where he's starting to get Defilers and Ultralisks out on the map.
It's an interesting decision from Artosis to do an on-site third as well. I mean, that can be kind of risky in these types of situations where you've been stuck in your main and natural for such a long time. He is able to scout this base here in the bottom right, which is going to give him some confidence that he might be able to go down there and kill it since there are no Sunkens up.
Some Zerglings, in the meantime, able to sneak into that 12 o'clock base, take out that SCV, and force a cancellation. Artosis can't be happy about that. So able to sneak through. He's going to move in, it looks like, the rest of the Medic Marines and clear that out.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was talking about. Is if you take that on-site location third, you really need to have units there in position to, because just a couple of lings. I mean, that was six Zerglings is all it took to cancel out that third base.
Looks like the science vessel count is starting to get up to a healthy number, but at the same time, Artosis hasn't been in a position to drop the irradiates on Herbmon's front. Herbmon's starting to move into more of a defensive stance for the first time in this match. He's actually behind the supply. Here's the thing, Artosis has really good recovery, so don't count him out at this stage. He's actually moved up 30 supply overall, and it looks like he's going to try to sneak an expansion top left.
Artosis is doing a really great job of scouting the entire map, knowing where Herbmon is, and he's got a somewhat healthy vessel count. So if he's able to take this high ground, great irradiates on all of the lurkers and pull himself back. I think he even got a Defiler there.
So Herbmon, where he looked fantastic in the early portions and looked like he might bowl Artosis over, Artosis, I would say, has recovered at this stage. Nidus Canal being built bottom right. He's probably not going to be able to breach here. Well, maybe. He's got a couple of irradiates and a lot of science vessels, and those aren't stacked lurkers, so that might be 3 irradiates plus the siege tanks at range to wipe them out, and Medic Marines to just walk. Nidus Canal is finished, but will there be enough to push down this ramp and deal with this Medic Marine siege tank army?
Yeah, and I mean, the timing of this is just brutal for Herbmon, with no Nidus not being done yet, and this base is just going to fall, it looks like.
So now Herbmon going to end up losing this third base, so it's going to be 4th gas out of his hands. He's still running on 3 gas. He's down, looks like about 30 supply overall, so that gets obliterated. But he hasn't used this opportunity to really, well, okay, never mind, take it back. It looks like he is going to be able to sneak a little bit out on the map. Now Artosis floating a command center up. This time he has a science vessel, some Marines, and an SCV to potentially blockade and defend, and it looks like he's going to spot some Zerglings incoming. But again, this is where Herbmon's had some trouble overall, where he hasn't transitioned into cohesive attacks, really, and he's creating a little bit of chaos here and there, but it looks like Artie is able to deal with it pretty easily.
Yeah, and that's a great irradiator. I mean, that's going to slow this push down and be able to control your third. Otherwise, Artosis is going to be starving. But he's able to control his third and get it all up, and I think Artosis is in a really great position.
So main just about mined out. Natural expansion still healthy. He's going to have 3 bases to work with. Probably going to just shell up and start macroing. But the thing is he's got these siege tanks. He can be oh, never mind. He is going to be aggressive with them. He's starting to make a little bit of motions. These are so scary for Herbmon, because as long as those siege tanks are surrounded by and some irradiates are dropped, it's going to be very difficult without some swarm and some incredible aggression, and maybe some troops out on the ground, which I do not see right this second. We've got some here at the natural expansion, but not a lot already positioned here at the 9 o'clock. So Artosis is going to be able to wander up. It looks like he's going to find that 10 o'clock base as it's spawning and immediately be able to take it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things Artosis has done tremendously well in this series so far is really retain his vessel count. I don't think I've seen a single vessel go down to Scourge. They're full energy. He's been really efficient with them, and that's one of the things. If you can retain your vessel count versus Zerg, it just becomes so efficient over the long time.
Opened up a 60 supply lead. 10 o'clock base is down. That wasn't a cancellation for Herbmon. Looks like he is going to be able to at least get 2 siege tanks, maybe the 3rd, with the lurkers here, which will be helpful at least in some defense of his territory. In the meantime, Artosis looks like he forced a cancellation of a hatch, he killed the hatchery bottom right, but he's got some troops here blocking out any additional bases for Herbmon, so gonna starve him out over the long term. Siege tanks are gone. The Scourge not able to get additional science vessels. It looks like there was a Scourge hit at least on one of them to weaken that science vessel up, but Artosis running off 6 barracks, doing pretty decent with the upgrades, level 2 weapons, level 1 armor. His main is mined out, but still happily on 2 bases. If you can go ahead and grab this 11 o'clock base, or sorry, 11 o'clock base if he wants to.
And it looks like Herbmon may be having trouble a little bit with his macro. I don't think there's enough macro hatches for him to be able to spend his money efficiently.
This does seem to be a problem in his game, particularly versus Terran, is having the macro hatches at this stage. And also, yeah, just getting something cohesive. He has some overlords maybe to go for a drop right here. That's getting caught. Looks like some Zerglings trying to swarm in. Yeah, it looks like it was for some sort of drop play. The Defiler able to sneak out of it and drop some Dark Swarm as well. The Zerglings chasing down Medic Marines. But one thing Artosis is amazing at is getting out of Dark Swarm range. And just bleeding the troops out. So right there eating a plague, but you can see how long and how frustrating this was for Herbmon, trying to chase it down with just the 3 Zerglings. So he's going to actually end up preserving a lot of these medics and a lot of these Marines.
And that was incredibly efficient for Artosis. I mean, he's able to retain that vessel count. He was able to kill a lot of gas units. And Herbmon only being on 3 gas, that's painful. Every time a Defiler goes down when you're on 3 gas, it's really, really painful.
And the main is depleted. The natural expansion is going to be depleted in not too long. Herbmon really needs to get this 10 o'clock base up and running. We still have a medic marine nearby. And Artosis has a really scary attack force. A little bit, can make the jokes in chat at 158 here. Supply capped right this second, but has a really formidable army. Is 50 supply up. Looks like he hasn't grabbed this 4th. Maybe just wanted that SCV out there to scout and make sure Herbmon wasn't taking anything sneakily. Herbmon does have a sizable attack force here to potentially defend the 10 o'clock base, but right now in the red, and there is just a fleet of science vessels for Artosis to drop all sorts of irradiates and make defense of this 10 o'clock base all the more difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, this seems to be a big problem for Herbmon. He hasn't been able to kill almost any of those vessels. I mean, look at the amount of gas some of those vessels have. That's 9, 10 irradiates available. No Defilers are going to survive more than a couple of seconds when you have that much irradiate available to you.
So now, just as an afterthought almost, sidling into that 10 o'clock base, and once this gets wiped out, it looks like some Ultralisks were looking for maybe a counterattack, but Artosis already in position. Nice, I gotta say that was a nice plague to not hit any of the Defilers, but Herbmon GGing right there as he lost his 10th. Don't blame him. But intense game 1 overall.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good series. I think Artosis got a large advantage in some ways, being able to watch that Nesh versus Herbmon series. But Herbmon was in a really great position. He just couldn't get that 4th base up, and I think he tried to contain for a little bit too long, and it put him in a small disadvantage.
In Herbmon's TV, I think that's where he languishes in his versus Terran plays, is as he transitions towards the late game and that space of macro and getting the massive amount of Ultralisks and Defilers and being able to defend and get the space out there. That seems to be where he has trouble and falls apart a little bit.